Hey everyone, welcome to Relatively Damaged Live. This is Angela.
And I'm Kat.
And we are here live on, this is our first live on Twitch, YouTube, and we've been all over Facebook, but sometimes we got to try something new.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
So welcome to all of our viewers today. Hey, Larnie is here. Yay, hi.
Hi.
We decided to let you guys know that we're going live on all those platforms, first of all, and that you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on the website. You can find us just about everywhere because, we're Angela and Kat with the Relatively Damaged Live show. So, got to have fun with that. But we are here with a topic today, a surprise topic that came up, and it is about the word disabled. And how this started was I said, I think we could use a different word. And then Kat said, oh, I have so many questions for you about that. And I was like, okay, let's go for it. Let's do this. So that's pretty much where we stopped it right there and said, let's do this live. Right. So give it to me. Make it hard on me.
Okay. Good morning or good afternoon, Becky. Glad you're with us. Okay. Well, you posed that question that disabled. Is there a better word than that? And it made me think of all of the ways that we're changing language to better accommodate people's, I don't want to say feelings, but to better define their relationship to us and to the rest of society. So, long timers versus old timers. That's the ageism in there, whereas old is often looked at as a negative. But long timers could be looked on differently. The whole issue surrounding gender, and the use of pronouns and things like that. And I had just read, interestingly enough, that they're coming out with a new version of the Revised Standard Edition of the Bible, where they change some of the language. So from slave girl to, enslaved female or enslaved young woman. Yes, to kind of change the language and the view is to not make it in a negative light, but to still state the truth of the person's situation. So that leads me to the question is that what is a better word than disabled in your opinion?
That's a great question because I don't think I have 100%. I have not come up with a new word at all. And I thought differently abled would be closer to the truth of the matter, because when I think of the word disabled, I think non-operable, alarms being disabled. I'm trying to think of all the words that come, but it's clearly not working. When a car's on the side of the road, it is not working. An alarm disabled, it's no longer working. When, some of the other things that happen. So when we think of language and we think not able, then, and we use that, there's already an implicit bias. So we're talking about people with disabilities are already fighting against history, right? We've already got a huge history that says people with disabilities aren't valuable. And it's almost like we're a glutton for punishment, I think, sometimes, because then we take on this identity of this word and then we stand in pride in it. And the only thing that, if I look it up, in fact, I did look it up. I have my phone here, right here. Let me just pull it back up and see if I can tell you what it said. So the only thing where somebody has some value, the only definition, I should say, where there is some value is in a person. So a person having a physical, mental condition that causes them to struggle, and specifically designed for relating to with people with a physical or mental disability. But, the similar words, incapacitate, impair, we're getting into that, deactivate, disarm, render inoperative, make ineffective. So here we are as a group of people who have literally taken on this word that, when used in other contexts, means those things. So my question becomes, how can I expect people not to associate those other definitions or other uses with me as a person? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. You know, my attitude towards people, especially with physical disabilities, had changed over time because I had learned that um, it was kind of like, well, they need help. I'll being a helpful person and trying to be nice and everything, I'll do for you. Um, and I realized that, and it's kind of evolving. I need to ask, would you like some help? Is there something that I can help you with? And let the person state, yes, I need special reading software, or yes, I can't get my wheelchair up in the, I'm thinking of my work life, up in the stack. So could you retrieve those items for me? Um, and so it became this kind of understanding is, yes, these people are completely capable, just like everybody else. There just may not be things that they can do. I even notice as I'm getting older, things don't work as well as they used to. And there are things I can't do that I could have done 20 years ago. Um,
Now, let
and
me ask you this, since there
okay,
are those things you're noticing you're not being able to do the same things, and there are some disabilities. Do you feel disabled though?
absolutely not. I feel like, for example, opening jars. I just don't have the strength in my hands that I used to. So I'll get one of those rubber things or a special jar opener. It's like a clip that you clip on and are able to open it. Or, I at Thanksgiving I asked my brother-in-law, I gave him a bottle and I said, "Could you open this for me?" It was just that. And I just thought, this is something I need help with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was okay with that. I was okay with asking what I needed or getting a tool to help me with what I could no longer do.
Yeah. Hi, Prativa. Just want to say hi while you were in a break there. But I think that's true. And one of the things you said, though, that I think is really interesting, like that giving the room or asking the question so someone can ask, right? So I think that's another dynamic for people who have been identified as disabled, right? And there's also this thing, this mentality, I think, that comes with being identifying as disabled and having disabilities, is that I cannot do. And
Mm.
I think there's also the struggle of, for me, it was fairly quick that I lost the ability to use my hands. And then what came with that was depression and anxiety and things like that. And I didn't even know how to ask. So there's got to be some balance in here somewhere. And part of me wonders if along the way that had been labeled as differently abled instead of disabled, if maybe things would have been a little different. Maybe my perception would have been different.
I don't have the answer to that question.
Right.
Um, Here is just a perspective. So, we have a little niece who is 6 years old, I believe, and she's got Down syndrome. So she has struggles, but they have taught her from the beginning. She'd sometimes get discouraged because she couldn't do things, fine motor skills and things like that. And they teach her, I know it's hard, but you can do hard things.
Yeah.
And they continue to work with her until she can do it. And because of that, she's thriving. They didn't look at it as a disability, they looked at it as a challenge.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe challenged, maybe a little more, or I say relatively damaged. That's just my way of calling calling out the elephant in the room. I am not 100% disabled. I am not so damaged that I'm no good. Like that's why the name of the show is relatively damaged, because I think we all have something that we need a little extra help with. And just like your niece, she's got the right support and in that environment can thrive. So if I just keep thinking of shifting that perspective to a positive, you know?
Yeah, I mean, physically challenged, mentally challenged, emotionally challenged.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's another aspect of it though, is that people don't necessarily want to claim those labels. I think with physical, I mean, I'm seeing your hand up like this, and we're seeing your brace on your hand.
Yeah.
So you're like, what's going on? People see that, but if somebody has a mental disability like dyslexia or ADHD, whatever, and struggles with certain things, you don't see that. That's that hidden, what they call disability. Emotional disabilities. I mean, that's a whole huge another thing. You could throw addiction in there and various mental illnesses, that are completely treatable, but people still need to accept them and overcome that. But then there's the whole thing, it's the stigma
Yeah.
that someone with a physical disability may not be able to escape.
No, it's definitely, I love wintertime.
I know you like these kind of
I do. I
sleeves.
love those kinds of sleeves because it's really funny. Every year for a little bit of time, I get, even though I hate the cold is worse for my pain, people don't notice. And when they don't notice, I'm not treated differently. And when I'm not treated differently, I feel normal, like I feel like myself again. And then spring rolls around and the shorter sleeves come out, and all of a sudden it's all these questions. And the funny thing is, I would rather answer questions than people just, you know, stare at me, because I think it gives time to educate, and it says, "Hey, yeah, this is real and I can still live. I just, I need a caregiver to help me with regular activities of daily living. They help me do so many more things than people probably even think about. I mean, just think of all the things we do with our hands, just
Mm-hmm.
so many things. Um, But, what would happen if people with disabilities were, I want to say normalized, but I'm not sure that's the right word. What I'm saying is we're out enough that now people aren't afraid and they're not scared. And I think part of that might come. Hey, Trevor, thanks for showing up. I think part of that might come from changing that verbiage, or changing that word. Like even the Americans with Disabilities Acts, we are Americans first who
Mm-hmm.
have disabilities. And somewhere along the line, we took on this identity of disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure I like it, but on every doctor's form, it's not working, not working. It's, disabled. I mean, there is an actual box that says disabled. And then the question becomes, especially if applying for like Social Security or things like that, it's like there's no support for if there is something you can do, but there's not money in it. I mean, think about someone with disabilities. I think it's just about as hard to find a job as a high level CEO, but we certainly don't get paid that way. And the funny thing is, we have so many creative thoughts and ideas that the chances we're a CEO in our own life, we're already acting and solving problems and having to be team players and doing all these things. But it's a real struggle to even get decent pay.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's, I mean, that's the thing that people have to realize is that it doesn't matter if you are disabled or not in terms of the current definition. It's what can you do? So rather than looking at the can't, look at the can. What are
Yeah.
the gifts that you have to offer? Because everyone has gifts to offer.
Yeah, I wonder what would happen if the Social Security disability application was, well, what can you do? Instead of all the things you can't do.
Well, it made me think. I had a neighbor once who had a shoulder injury. He had the same shoulder injury and the same surgery that I did, and he managed to get on disability. And I was like, I'm going to overcome that shoulder injury. I'm going to rehab. I'm going to do everything. Is it 100%? No, but it was the point that I could get that and do that. Now he had a job which was a lot more physical than my job. Mine was primarily a desk job, um, supervising people. He worked in a factory, and so he was using his hands up, and that was part of the thing. So he couldn't do that job anymore. But it makes me wonder is if we would say, okay, well, you're disabled, you can't do that job. But what can you do? Would there have been that sense of, oh yes, I still have worth, I still have value? I
Right.
remember
And
him suffered greatly from depression because of that. You know,
yeah.
we'll help retrain you. Wouldn't that, help you learn new skills if you don't have those skills? What would that do?
A lot, right? Or even the employer would be able to um, support just by saying, "Hey, there is something you can do. Let's figure it out and support you to the best of our ability." Because I think even then, that says something about the employer. I think Trevor popped a note in the chat here real quick. People think being disabled and working is I'm not sure if that word crux issue. Not you get about something about bills to pay, but I think maybe he's trying to say like it's a being disabled and, well, maybe I'm not going to try and figure that one out right now, but I think I know plenty of people with disabilities who can work, but working doesn't pride issue. Okay, he says peeps think being disabled and working is a pride issue, not that they've got bills to pay. Oh no, what do you mean by that, Trevor? I just want to clarify. I know autocorrect is honoring. Like, are you saying it's a pride issue to not work, or are you saying it's a pride issue to work? Because that what I'm trying. Sometimes I think, with my disability, there's not much you can do without hands, and I can have this conversation, which is fantastic, right? And spread and have these types of conversations. But most of us have bills to pay. I do. And I'll tell you what, a lot of people think I've also gotten this idea that, oh, you get a free ride. No, it's not really a free ride. Gosh, I don't even think, I have 2 kids and it's limited. Oh, that you don't need to work because you get a government check. Well, it's not much. It's not much. Can I unstigmatize that right now? It's not enough to live comfortably on.
and and there, there's the thing, and it kind of goes to this whole idea in society that, again, throwaway people, you know we'll give you a little bit because we don't want to seem totally uncruel, or totally cruel. But the point is that we, rather than let society determine what our value is, I think we, be you disabled or not, have to say, wait a minute, we have value. This is what we can do.
Yeah, I
Or can
agree.
you help me discover that? Especially
Right.
somebody who's done something for a while.
And it's interesting. Trevor made another comment that I think is really a great. It's far from free. It's not a free check. There is a huge cost to having a disability. It's a significant cost on so many different levels. There's if there is a physical disability or an emotional disability, or um, any of the other intellectual disability, and if you're disabled enough to qualify for Social Security, it's far from free money. I I have significantly paid a price to for having a disability. I've been isolated. If you think about all the things that are lost, there's the isolation that happens. Um, and of course, what I advocate for parents with disabilities who have children who don't have disabilities, so able-bodied children with disabled parents, there's not support there, and if they're single parents, it can be even worse because services aren't there. So it's not that people with disabilities don't want to give back and don't want to participate. And I think that is part of the reason why I wish it was a different word. I think SSDI and SSI are kind of the same. I'm not sure. But there is disability insurance, Trevor, and then there's the SSI, and I can't remember which way you have to be on it. But again, that word disabled, I think, gets us stuck.
So we still haven't come up with a new word.
Okay, let's see. Well, I like differently abled. Trevor, your autocorrect went again. I like challenged.
Yeah. The only thing I have with differently abled is that sometimes, my hands do work. You and I might have the same abilities other than the hands.
Right. Right.
So that's why it's like differently abled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I just agree with that one, but that's just me. Challenged I like.
Well, I think it's got to be something that's not what's the word I'm looking for? Solid. Like if we say it, it's not definitive, because I think abilities are. I think that's why they use disabilities in the ADA and not disabled Americans, because it's final. It's like a decision is made when I say disabled. Whereas
Mm,
disabilities, it opens up the possibility that the person has more ability than maybe even than disability,
mm, okay.
right? So maybe even if we just kept to disabilities, the person with disabilities, because that leaves it
That
open.
get
Uh,
that gets yeah. I agree with that, Trevor. That a person with disabilities, there you go. You're not saying that they have no ability. They may have a disability to do a particular thing.
mm-hmm,
Your hands may not work, but your mind works. Your
right.
ability to connect with people works. There are things that you can do. There is so much value that you have and give to the world, I think.
Oh,
Um,
all the people I know with disabilities are freaking rock stars in my world.
yeah,
Like the things that they think about, it's like, oh, I hadn't thought about that before. Okay, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for that.
yeah. So that might, a person with disabilities, it might make it more difficult legally to parse that out. Well, where is the point that qualify for services or SSDI or whatever?
Right.
Changing the language, in that respect, might mean that. But in terms of the social emotional cost of it, I
Well,
think reframing it like that, a person with a disability.
I think that, I mean, it is so hard to get disability benefits through Social Security. It's really a process, right? So I think that that's already set up. How many, I think, what on average people are denied 3 times before they get their benefits or something like. I mean, it's a process and
Mm-hmm.
almost a game. If you talk to these attorneys and things like that. So I think it's already set up with that there's a price to pay if you have different abilities
Mm-hmm.
that are not seen as valuable. So I think people then have to lean into I am quote unquote disabled. I'm no longer operable. But if I'm no longer operable, where's my value?
Right.
And I think that's my problem. I don't see the value. I think using that word strips us of our value.
And therein lies the crux of the argument. So it, the person with a disability, again, your disability has led you to need a caregiver to assist you with certain tasks. That does not mean that you do not have value.
Right.
All that means is you need help.
Exactly. But
All
and
that
for
means is
many
you need
years I
help.
right, but understanding that and you know is different because I was supposed to be the one to care for people. I was, like in coming from that perspective. So it very much was not a team effort, right? So just needing help meant, in fact, if anything, I think I went below, like I'm like below no value. I went to the negative. Quite honestly, because I if I couldn't serve them, what could I do?
Yeah.
you know so I think that, and I think that's a great point, Trevor, too, is that we are a service oriented, and what happens when we're in a service oriented country or in that belief and then find ourselves in a situation where we can't give, and then not only can we not give, but now we've been labeled as incapable of giving, basically, right? And only able to receive.
Exactly. And again, I think, this brings up so much stuff because I think it brings up what do we value in society? And we value the ability to do and to produce, to be productive in terms of monetary value. And there is so much more value in the world that's not monetary.
Yeah, and becoming okay with that
Yeah.
is
And
difficult. For me, it was difficult. Um, Being able to say I am and that be enough has been a tremendous journey for me. So it's not I am enough, it's just I am. And because I am in that to be, right?
mhm, mhm.
That's enough because I'm being. And because I'm being, there's a purpose. And it just looks very different than anything I ever envisioned, first of all. But I think anything most people envision for people, for anyone.
Agreed. You said it very well.
Yeah, Trevor said those recovering can be universal too. Maybe outside of the scope of the, yeah, I think it's outside of the scope of this conversation, but because people can recover and can go back to work and can do those things, you know. So I think that's the, I think where I'm trying to go with this a little bit actually is, you know, had disabilities been viewed as differently abled, now we're just supporting each other, or, you know, Americans with disabilities, however we want to say it, a person with disabilities, and where it's just noticing a difference, that then we can support each other because everyone has something different about them where they need
Mhm.
support and learning. And so I think that's really important to recognize that we're all valuable. And I want the word to show that too.
Yes, and that's where I'll twist it around is that, you say, "I may need this help," and I wanna say, everyone has something to offer.
Oh, they so do. Well, we've given you guys our 30 minutes. We're glad to have this conversation. We'll see you on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook. I'm Angela.
And I'm Kat.
We'll see you next